Okay, so now let's talk about St. Louis City and St. Louis County and local government. While local government might be the smallest government we've talked about all year, which is federal government and state government, and now local government, I would argue in a lot of ways local government might be the most influential on our lives and shaping the quality of where we live in our community. We have good law enforcement, good public education, parks, recreation, housing, affordable housing, and so forth and so on, that really raises the quality of life. And there's a big difference between places that we live in America, where the government is definitely much more engaged in helping the citizens, and other places where it's much less. And it's your point of view if you think that is good or bad. Now, St. Louis City, we'll start with, is over 250 years old. It was settled in 1764 as a fur trading post on the Mississippi by the French. Remember, the Mississippian Indians lived across the water in the Cahokia Mounds, and also there's mounds in St. Louis City too. You could call it the Mound City, and that would be accurate. There's still one on the south side of St. Louis. There's that we know of. 79 neighborhoods in St. Louis City. Over 300,000 people is the population. The 60th most populated city in the United States. We're just talking about the city itself, which is interesting because the land is super small. St. Louis City is 150th in land. So it's more populated than the size of the land. 60 square miles is incredibly small. Actually, you could probably walk or jog, or people run from the Arch all the way to Forest Park, and that is the width of St. Louis City probably every day. Now, to go to length, they go South Broadway on the south side all the way to the north side of South Broadway. That would definitely be a much longer move, but still doable. I heard of high school track teams, they run up and down Lindell, and they basically do the length of the city all the time. So it's not very big at all. And it does have a pretty dense population. But it's incredible to think about that maybe about 100 years ago, or less than 100 years ago, we had over 850,000 people in St. Louis. You're getting close to 1 million people in 60 square miles. And that's why they start building these skyscrapers downtown. Because how would you even maintain that kind of population? You had to start building up because there's not much land in St. Louis City. All right, so let's look at our government. So the mayor is the highest position in St. Louis City. Tashara Jones is the mayor of St. Louis. She's the first African-American woman, and she is very progressive, incredibly progressive. And actually, the candidates that run for the city are always Democrats that win, and the Republicans generally don't do very well at all. And it's usually a battle. Whoever gets a Democratic candidate nomination becomes the mayor of St. Louis. It's a very progressive city, too. At one point, we were considered the most progressive city in America. I think it's a little bit more conservative now, but that's still like less than 10% of people tend to vote conservatively or Republican. In fact, there's another part called the Green Party. It's even more progressive that tends to do well in St. Louis City over the Republicans. St. Louis legislative branch is called the Board of Aldermen. Yes, even though they're women, they're called aldermen. They have not changed that term. St. Louis City is broken into 28 political districts. So you have 28 aldermen, and they break up the districts into these. So an alderman is almost like it's basically like a representative from a district, very similar to like a state or a federal district representative. They vote on things, and the mayor acts like a governor or the president. However, the mayor, in a lot of ways, probably has more power than, for example, the governor. She can shoot down and veto laws, but also she has pretty much direct control over law enforcement. She does not have as much control over the school board because St. Louis Public Schools is run by an elected school board. But she has input on that as well. And mayors can have a lot of power directly influencing their city, sometimes more than the Board of Aldermen or the council. So here's some beautiful architecture in St. Louis. We just have absolutely phenomenal architecture. Actually, we're world renowned for our architecture. We have the Wright building, which is downtown, which is considered the first skyscraper in the world in St. Louis. It's a very famous building. You can actually walk through it. I have. And many architects and engineers would come study the Wright building, and they took that to Chicago, and it's basically the inspiration for the high rises in Chicago, which is kind of the skyscraper capital of the United States. Very beautiful downtown Chicago as well. And you can see there is the inside, there's the City Hall, this Gothic style building, absolutely amazing. You don't build things like this anymore; it's just too expensive. But this is where the mayor stays and the city alderman and a lot of the business is conducted for the city of St. Louis. And that's right down there, almost by right where the Blues play at the Enterprise Center. Now, St. Louis City's geography is interesting as well. The Missouri River is the longest river in America that drives into St. Louis, followed by the Mississippi, which is the second longest river in Missouri. So you can see on the map on the bottom right-hand corner that Missouri is in fact, or St. Louis is in fact a big port city for the Mississippi and Missouri. If you want to move cargo up the Mississippi, you're probably going to stop in St. Louis or at least go by. And it's been a great place for fur trading and other kind of trading and industry. If you look on our riverfront, you'll see tons and tons of factories all around St. Louis. So it was a really good place to build things and make things. Like we were the shoe capital of the world at one point. You can see there's a picture of a bald eagle. We have bald eagles that stay just outside of St. Louis. Pictures to the bottom left, that's actually Grafton, Illinois. It's called the Key West of the Midwest. It's really pretty. You sit there, and it's interesting to sit on the Mississippi and the Illinois side, and the Illinois River as well, and you'll see these yachts and boats pulling up while you're eating lunch, and it makes you feel like, where am I? So we even have islands in the middle of the Mississippi and the Illinois River with houses. People stay on islands, or they have little summer houses. You can see that down below. But also, it's a flood valley, and it is a plain, or it's a flood valley. So we do have things like termites and flooding in the St. Louis area. But it's also really good quality land if you want to grow food. And if you go to our farmers market at Soulard, you'll notice that the food is pretty amazing. You get some fresh corn, vegetables, and even fruits in St. Louis that grow. So a little bit more history on St. Louis. We've got St. Louis is a river valley with fertile land for growing crops. The area is prone to flooding. That's something we have to think about. And when you build a house or where your houses are located, St. Louis City has some pretty high points that are safe. St. Louis County has some low points, like out in Eureka, where there's definitely some flooding. And there's actually a flood valley in Chesterfield, where they have huge flood walls that are supposed to hold up for 500 years, but we don't know with the increased flooding in the world because of global warming. The Hill neighborhood is one of the most famous neighborhoods. It's the highest point in St. Louis. That's why it's called the Hill. It's actually an Italian neighborhood that's very famous for staying intact with its Italian culture and food. And it's world-renowned for having amazing bakery products. And you can go and check it out, walk around the hill and play bocce ball at Milo's, and you can get amazing food. It's a really interesting. Then you can see there's some Italian immigrant settlers that are on Marconi on the main strip right in front of the famous church. So, but then you can see in the middle picture, we have had several major floods in the last 30 years, and it is hard to contain the water. And we are constantly have to build infrastructure to deal with flooding. St. Louis flag is really interesting. You can see the fleur-de-lis represents our French heritage and background. It's actually usually wins one of the best, our most beautiful flags in the country. It wasn't designed too long ago. The two blue squiggly waters meeting together at the fleur-de-lis represent the Missouri and the Mississippi River. And that is important for us to kind of see the symbolism of our French heritage and culture influence. And you can see that in our oldest neighborhood, Soulard. Soulard is the oldest neighborhood in St. Louis. And you can see Lafayette Square, you see a lot of French architecture in those areas where the original St. Louisans might have built houses or buildings. There's St. Louis districts, and you can see that it's cut up into very different, those are the political districts, and you can see how those are kind of spread out. Some are bigger than the others. Like number 2 is really big, which probably tells you there's not a lot of people in District 2. A lot of land in that North City area by the river, a lot of factories. But you can see, if you look, there are also some smaller areas. And they try to cut the districts as balanced as they can, but the populations aren't exactly that as balanced as you'd think. These are the neighborhoods. So this is interesting. Kind of looking at the concentration of homicides. One thing we've known is we do have a high rate of homicide in St. Louis City, and you can see the concentration. The red dots, like the Jeff Van Loo neighborhood, has very high murder rate. Where on the other side of this, you could go to High Point, or which is like Dogtown, or Wydown Skinker, and they have no murders. There's many places like Ellendale, Fairground Park. There's parts of St. Louis that have almost no murders. It does change from year to year, but it makes you think. Why is the crime heavier in certain areas, and what is going on? And you can see that not all parts of the city are equally safe or dangerous.